I am standing in my garage, holding a freshly signed purchase agreement in my hands. The smell of motor oil and metal fills my lungs, and for a moment everything feels right. This 1,200 square foot space is mine. Every tool on these walls, every lift, every part bin represents 5 years of grinding, saving, and building something real. My phone buzzes on the workbench. The screen lights up with a name I have not seen in 2 years, Derek, my older brother. The golden child. The one who got everything while I got the leftovers. His voice comes through cold and clipped when I answer. We need to talk about your garage. I do not know it yet, but this phone call will change everything. But before I tell you what happened next, I want to know, where are you watching this from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. If you have ever been looked down on by your own family, hit that like button. This story is for you. And do not forget to subscribe, because what my family did next, you will not believe it. Now let me take you back to where this all began 2 years before that phone call, when my brother first called me low class. My brother Derek is 5 years older than me. We grew up in a household where our parents, both immigrants, worked themselves to the bone. Dad laid bricks and poured concrete for 30 years. Mom spent her nights as a nurse at the county hospital. They wanted better for us. They wanted us to climb higher than they ever could. Derek was groomed for greatness from day one. Computer science at Stanford. Internships at tech companies whose names you would recognize. Our parents threw him elaborate birthday parties, bought him the newest laptops, bragged about him to every relative who would listen. My son, the computer genius. That is what they called him. Then, there was me, Sergio. The kid who liked taking things apart and putting them back together. The one who spent weekends in the driveway helping neighbors fix their lawnmowers for $20. When relatives asked what I was up to, Mom would smile tightly and say he is good with his hands. The way she said it always sounded like an apology. Dad would nod and quickly change the subject back to Derek's latest achievement. I did not resent my brother back then. I loved working with my hands. Loved the satisfaction of diagnosing a problem and actually fixing it. But it hurt watching my parents' eyes dim with disappointment whenever they looked at me. Derek never missed a chance to remind me where I stood in the family hierarchy. When are you going to do something real with your life? He would ask over Sunday dinners. I would just shrug and change the subject. No point arguing with someone who thinks your dreams are too small to matter. 2 years ago, everything came to a head at Thanksgiving. Derek had just closed his Series A funding round, $3 million for his startup TechFlow Solutions. He showed up to Mom and Dad's house in a tailored suit, hair slicked back with expensive gel, talking about market disruption and workflow automation like he was delivering a TED Talk. The whole extended family was there. Aunts, uncles, cousins, everyone gathered around to hear about Derek's big success. I arrived late because I had been fixing a car for a customer who needed it urgently. My hands still smelled like transmission fluid despite scrubbing them twice. I slid into my seat at the dinner table just as Derek was explaining his company's revolutionary approach to business software. Everyone hung on his every word. Then my aunt turned to me. "And you, what are you doing these days?" I smiled, genuinely proud. "I just opened my own garage. Small place, but it is mine. Been working toward this for 5 years. The table went quiet. That awkward silence where everyone suddenly becomes very interested in their mashed potatoes. Derek laughed, this short, sharp sound that felt like a slap. A garage. That is cute. Then came the words that would echo in my head for the next 2 years. Sergio, you are 30 years old and you are still playing with cars. Do not you think it is time to do something less low class? The entire dining room froze. Mom tried to smooth it over. Derek, that is not nice. But he kept going. I am just being honest. Mom, Dad sacrificed everything for us. I am building something that matters. He is changing oil. I looked at Dad, waiting for him to say something. Anything. He just stared down at his plate fork, frozen halfway to his mouth. That moment told me everything I needed to know. In their eyes, I would always be the disappointment, the one who chose grease under his fingernails over a corner office. I wanted to flip the table. Wanted to tell Derek exactly what I thought of his inflated ego and his buzzword-filled business plan. But I did not. I just stood up, grabbed my jacket, and said quietly, "Time will tell." Then, I walked out. I did not go back for Christmas that year, or the next family gathering. I threw myself into my work instead. Those 2 years were hard but incredible. I worked 70-hour weeks, took on every job I could handle, built a reputation for quality work and fair prices. My garage specialized in classic car restoration and custom builds. It was a niche market, but the profit margins were solid. Word spread through car clubs and collector circles. Within 18 months, I had a 3-month waiting list. Last month, a well-known collector brought me his 1967 Mustang. The engine was seized, the interior was trashed, and the frame had rust issues. I spent 6 weeks bringing that car back from the dead. When I handed him the keys, he wrote me a check for $35,000 and told 5 of his friends about my work. My garage was pulling in between $8,000 and $12,000 a month after expenses. Not Silicon Valley money, but enough to live comfortably. Enough to feel proud. I had just signed a lease on the lot next door to expand operations. I had a girlfriend, Harper, who taught kindergarten and loved me for who I actually was, not who I could become. My apartment was small but cozy. My life was not glamorous, but it was mine. It was honest. It was real. I had not spoken to Derek in 2 years. Barely talked to Mom and Dad either. Then my phone rang with Derek's name on the screen. His voice had changed. The cocky confidence was gone, replaced by something desperate. "Sergio, we need to talk. Can you come to Mom and Dad's this Sunday? It is important." Family meeting. Something in his tone made my stomach tighten. Against my better judgment, I agreed. That Sunday, I pulled up to my parents' house with a sense of dread sitting heavy in my chest. The door was unlocked. I walked into the living room and found them all sitting there waiting. Mom and Dad on the couch, flanking Derek like lawyers, protecting their client. Derek sat between them, and I barely recognized him. No tailored suit this time. He wore a wrinkled t-shirt and jeans. His face was unshaven, dark circles carved deep under his eyes. He looked like he had aged 5 years in 2. I took the chair across from them, feeling like I had been called to the principal's office. Mom spoke first, her voice overly gentle in that way that always preceded bad news. "Sergio, thank you for coming. We know you and Derek have not talked much." She paused, glancing at Derek, then back at me. "But family is family. And when one of us is struggling, we all help." Dad cleared his throat. "Your brother's company has hit some challenges. Challenges. That was a nice way of putting it." I looked directly at Derek. What kind of challenges? Derek could not meet my eyes. He stared at the coffee table, his jaw working like he was chewing on words he did not want to say. Finally, he forced it out. The company failed. Completely. Our product did not work the way we promised. Customers started canceling contracts. Investors pulled out. We burned through all $3 million in 2 years. His voice cracked. I owe vendors $180,000. I owe the IRS $95,000 in back taxes. The lead investor is suing me personally. I might have to declare bankruptcy. The room was silent except for the ticking of the clock on the mantel. I should have felt vindicated. Should have felt that rush of, "I told you so." But all I felt was sad. Sad for the kid I grew up with. Sad for my parents who had pinned all their hopes on his success. Sad for everyone in that room except myself. "What happened?" I asked quietly. Derek's hands clenched into fists on his knees. "I spent too much on the wrong things. Fancy office in downtown. Huge salaries to attract top talent. Marketing campaigns that went nowhere. I was so focused on looking successful that I forgot to actually build something that worked." Mom leaned forward, her eyes already red from crying. "We have been thinking. Your garage is doing well, right?" The way she said it made alarm bells go off in my head. "And you own that property." I nodded slowly, my body tensing. Dad jumped in. "We think maybe you could sell it. Help your brother get back on his feet." The words hit me like a physical blow. Sell it. My garage. the thing I had bled and sweated for. The dream I had built from nothing while they were all too busy celebrating Derek's imaginary success. "It is just a garage," Dad continued. "You can start again. You are young. You are good at what you do. Just a garage." As if those words did not completely invalidate everything I had accomplished, Derek finally looked up at me, his expression a mixture of desperation and something else. Entitlement, maybe. "Sergio, I made mistakes. I admit it. But this is my chance to learn and rebuild. Your garage could get, what, 300,000? That would cover my debts and give me seed money for the next venture. You could work for someone else for a while. You do not need to own a place." I sat there completely stunned. "You want me to sell my garage? The garage I spent 5 years building. To bail you out?" Mom reached across to touch my hand, but I pulled away. "Do not think of it as bailing out. Think of it as investing in family. Derek is your brother. He has been through so much." Dad's voice took on an edge. "We would have helped, but we do not have that kind of money. You are the only one who can save him." Then Derek said the thing that made my blood turn to ice. "Honestly, Sergio, what is the big deal? It is just a garage. I was building something revolutionary. My startup could have changed lives. You are just fixing cars." There it was again. That same contempt, that same dismissal. Even broke and desperate, he still thought his failed dreams were worth more than my actual success. Come on, man. Be realistic. How much is your little garage really worth compared to my potential? Do not be selfish. Selfish. That word hung in the air like poison gas. I looked at my father. "We raised you to take care of family. This is your duty." I felt something inside me go cold and hard. Not angry. Not hurt. Just done. I stood up slowly. No. Just that one word. Mom started to protest. "Sergio, please." I held up my hand. I said no. That garage is my life. I built it from nothing. Every tool, every client, every dollar of revenue, I earned it. Derek had $3 million handed to him, and he burned it all. Why? Because he spent more time looking successful than being successful. Derek jumped to his feet. "You do not understand business." I laughed. Actually laughed. "I understand that my little garage makes profit every single month. Can you say that about your startup?" Dad stood up too, his face flushed. "Sergio, we are disappointed. We thought you were better than this. Better than this. Better than protecting the one thing I had built with my own 2 hands. Better than refusing to throw away my future for someone who had already squandered his own. You know what I am done trying to prove myself to you." I looked at each of them in turn. "Derek called me low class 2 years ago, and you all sat there and said nothing. Now he wants me to give up everything I have built to fix his mistakes. Not happening." I grabbed my keys and headed for the door. But before I left, I turned back. "But you know what? I will give you a gift, all of you, something you will never forget. I will show you exactly what low class can do." Then I walked out the door, closing behind me with a finality that felt like the end of something and the beginning of something else. I drove home with my hands shaking on the steering wheel. Not from fear or doubt, but from pure adrenaline. Harper was waiting for me at my apartment, concern written all over her face the moment I walked in. What happened, I told her everything. Every word, every demand, every insult. By the time I finished, I was pacing the living room like a caged animal. She stood up and wrapped her arms around me. "You did the right thing. That garage is your dream. They have no right to ask you to give it up." I held her tight, letting her steady presence calm the storm inside me, but my mind was already working, turning over possibilities. I could cut my family out of my life completely, walk away and never look back. Plenty of people would say I should. But that did not sit right with me. I did not want revenge. Revenge was easy and empty. What I wanted was for them to understand, to see what they had been too blind to notice all these years. I wanted them to learn the lesson Derek should have learned before he blew through $3 million. I stayed up most of that night planning. The gift I promised was not going to be money. It was not going to be forgiveness or reconciliation or any of the things they expected. It was going to be a mirror. A chance for Derek to see himself clearly. A chance for my parents to see what real work actually looked like. And most importantly, a chance for me to prove once and for all that success was not about how much funding you raised or how impressive your title sounded. I spent the next week doing research. I called some contacts in the tech industry, people who had heard about TechFlow's spectacular failure. I got the full story. Derek had rented a 15,000 square foot office space when his team was only 8 people. He had hired a chief marketing officer at $200,000 a year before the product even worked. He had spent $300,000 on a launch party. Every decision he made was about image, about appearing successful to investors and competitors. None of it was about building something sustainable. I also reached out to some of the vendors he owed money to. Small businesses mostly. A printing company. A web development firm. A catering service that had provided food for those extravagant office parties. Real people with real businesses who had trusted Derek and gotten burned. Their stories made me angrier than anything my family had said. These were people like me. People who worked hard and played by the rules.